Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining me today. In Matthew chapter 10, for the very first time, Jesus sent the apostles out on their own to preach the gospel of the kingdom. And in so doing, Jesus prepared them. He warned them about the different kinds of reactions that they would encounter as they went from town to town with the message of the kingdom. In verse 16 of Matthew 10, Jesus says, "Behold, I'm sending you out as sheep in the midst of wolves. So be wise as serpents and as innocent as doves." As Christians, as disciples, we have to be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. And in the next few minutes, I want to talk about what that really means. What does it mean to be wise? What does it mean to be a wise disciple of Jesus as we try to navigate through this world, doing His work and protecting ourselves from our adversary? So first of all, wise disciples think. As disciples, we have to be making wise discernments between the differences between good and evil. And that demands that we give thought to the things that we see and that we're exposed to in the world. In Philippians chapter 1, for example, in verses 9 and 10, Paul says, "In this I pray that your love may abound yet more and more in knowledge and in all judgment, that you may approve things that are excellent, that you may be sincere and without offense till the day of Christ." So as you think about your life, the things that you value, the things that you do day to day, that you're engaged in, could those things be approved by Christ? Are you making wise judgments in the decisions that you make from day to day? The decisions that we make affect our lives. They affect those who are around us. They shape the people that we become. And if we thoughtlessly go through life, then the world is what's going to shape us. Our adversary is going to get the better of us. So if we're going to be wise Christians, we have to be careful and cautious in the ways of the world. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, in verse 21, Paul says to prove all things, hold fast to that which is good. Now we can prove whether or not a thing is right or wrong. We can prove whether or not something is going to help us better reflect the glory of God, or if something's going to harm us from doing that. We can determine whether a thing is right or wrong, whether a thing is righteous or sinful. And we can do that primarily by using God's Word. Using God's Word to form our minds and our hearts to make wise decisions in our lives. So wise Christians think. Secondly, wise Christians avoid. As we think and make discernments in our lives, we're going to recognize there are some things that we need to stay away from. That perhaps there are some people that are not going to be good influences in our lives, and we need to stay away from them. In Proverbs chapter 4, in verses 14 and 15, Solomon writes, and of course Solomon is writing to young people, trying to get them to think, making wise discernments. And he tells them that there are some things that they need to avoid in order to have a good life and to be obedient to God. In Proverbs 4, in verses 14 and 15, he says to enter not into the path of the wicked and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it, pass not by it, turn from it and pass away. Solomon is emphatic about the avoidance of evil and those who practice evil. The reality is that there are people who are unwise. There are people who have allowed the world to shape them, and they prefer to live in sin and try to use sin to influence those who are around them. In Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 27, it's almost as if Paul is echoing Solomon. He says, neither give place to the devil. Don't give the devil an opportunity to take advantage of you. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 and verse 22, he says to abstain from all appearances of evil. As Christians, there are things that we have no right, no business doing as Christians, as people who are aspiring to godliness. So we have to avoid sin. We have to avoid situations in which, in all likelihood, we will be caused to sin. Well, being a wise Christian is not just about avoiding. Being a wise Christian is about surrounding. We need to surround ourselves, lastly, surround ourselves with people who are godly. We should surround ourselves with other Christians. We should surround ourselves with like-minded people who have the same values, who have the same goals, who have the same love as we do for Christ. We should surround ourselves with people who are going to encourage our faithfulness to the Lord. That's very, very important in our pursuit of heaven. Of course, Jesus wants us to surround ourselves with other Christians. As a matter of fact, back in Matthew chapter 10, Jesus did not send the disciples out by themselves as individuals. He sent them out together in groups so that they could be an encouragement to one another. In Hebrews chapter 3, in verses 12 to 13, the writer says to take care, brothers, lest there be in any of you an evil, unbelieving heart, leading you to fall away from the living God. But exhort one another daily, as long as it is called today, that none of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. So the writer here acknowledges the need for us to be around like-minded people for the sake of encouraging us. We could fall away. We could be taken by temptation and give up our faith. Well, how do you prevent that from happening? Well, one of the strategies that the Bible gives us is to surround ourselves with other Christians. We can help each other and encourage each other in life. So as we bring this video to a close, are you a wise Christian? Are you using your mind? Are you making wise discernments? Are you thinking? As you're making those discernments, do you recognize there are some things, some places, even some people that you need to be avoiding in your life? And are you surrounding yourself with good and godly influences, godly people, like-minded Christians who can help you reflect the glory of God in the pursuit of heaven? So I thank you for joining me today. I hope the lesson has been encouraging to you as we all strive for heaven. Thank you and have a nice day.